Good morning everyone. Welcome to All Force e-learning classes. This is a session 9 of the chapter 2, that is breathing and exchange of gases. So, how the oxygen transported and in what way it takes place we have seen. As it is, both the transport of O2 and CO2 are very important. So let's have what we have discussed earlier in a quick fashion. That is, the transport of oxygen takes place in two forms we have discussed. One by means of the plasma, and the another is by means of RBC. By means of the plasma, the solubility of the O2 takes place through plasma only 3%. Whereas 97% is by RBC. So, now the question is why only 3% of the oxygen transport through the plasma. We have discussed that the partial pressure of a gas, next the solubility of the gases, thickness of respiratory membrane, distance travelled by gases, and the respiratory surface what influence the exchange of gases and also the transport of the gases. So in this connection, the solubility of oxygen in the plasma is less, is the reason only 3% of oxygen transported through plasma, and 97% is by RBC. Now the 97% of O2 by RBC, it is because of the prime region is a respiratory pigment hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a tetramer. Hemoglobin is a respiratory pigment. It is a what is called the conjugate protein. Conjugate protein in the sense it is with the iron molecule as well as the protein. Globin is a protein and heme. That's what it is, a conjugate protein hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is with the 4 polypeptide bonds, and these are with each polypeptide bond is capable of binding with one iron, and each iron molecule bind with the one oxygen molecule. So 4 oxygen molecules are carried by hemoglobin. Here what we learn is hemoglobin carries 4 oxygen molecule, as it is carrying 4 oxygen molecule. So the saturation of hemoglobin is 100%. If the hemoglobin carries 4 oxygen molecule, the saturation of hemoglobin 100%. Which means if it is carrying the 3 oxygen molecules, 74% is the saturation. So by means of hemoglobin it gets transported. Point to remember that the hemoglobin is now we have to know a general statement. What it explains is 100 ml of the oxygenated blood delivers 5 ml of oxygen. 100 ml of oxygenated blood delivers 5 ml of oxygen. So we have to learn. In general, knowing the answer is not the right way, but why the answer is correct. Knowing the answer correct is not the point to remember, keep in mind, but the thing is why the answer is correct. So 100 ml of oxygenated blood delivers 5 ml. Okay, that is the answer. Why is what we have to find out. Thereby our the knowledge can be improved, and we can answer easy, and every question we can answer in a easiest manner. Right. So the general tendencies, a healthy person must have 12 to the 18 grams of hemoglobin per 100 ml of the blood. We know very well the details of the blood. 5 to 6 liters. Basically 5000 ml of the blood is present, and its composition, all the details we know in the circulatory system will come to discuss. In this connection, the red color of the blood is due to the RBC, and RBC have a hemoglobin, respiratory pigment. This respiratory pigment called hemoglobin, whose presence in individuals, it is varied from 12 to 18 grams per 100 ml. So each hemoglobin, 1 gram of hemoglobin carries 1.34 ml of blood. This is very, very important. So at an average, an individual will have 15 grams of the hemoglobin. So 15 into 1.34, we will get the approximately 20.14. So exactly it is around 19.34 ml. So approximately it is 20 ml of the oxygen carried by 100 ml of the O2 blood. So out of this, which means the hemoglobin, if it is carrying 4 oxygen molecules, the saturation is what I say is what is called saturation of hemoglobin is 100%, as it is carrying, each hemoglobin carrying 4 oxygen molecule. So the saturation of hemoglobin is 100%. After reaching the tissues, we discussed the partial pressure of tissues in a normal condition at tissues, or with the 40 mmHg. The partial pressure of oxygen at tissues 40 mmHg, which means in the oxygenated blood 95 mmHg. Gases diffuse from higher concentration to lower concentration. At tissues 40 mmHg, which means low partial pressure. The oxygen dissociation curve explains the relationship between partial pressure of oxygen and saturation of hemoglobin. As at 95 mmHg of the partial pressure, the saturation of hemoglobin is 97%. At tissues it is 40 mmHg. As there is a decrease in the partial pressure of oxygen, binding capacity of oxygen with hemoglobin reduces. Why? At tissues the partial pressure of oxygen is low. Wherever the partial pressure is low, solubility will be less. That is the reason why from oxygenated blood carried by systemic artery, the different arteries nearby the tissues, what oxygen dissociated from hemoglobin and delivers the oxygen to the tissues. This is how the 100 ml of O2 blood, 100 ml of O2 in the sense oxygenated blood carries 20 ml of oxygen. This is very, very important point to remember. 100 ml of O2 blood carries 20 ml of oxygen and delivers 5 ml of oxygen to the tissues, right? So out of 20 ml of oxygen, 5 ml is unloaded, delivered. What do you mean by that? It means it was with 100% of saturation in the oxygenated blood delivers 1 that is 25% of oxygen. Basically, total blood I am seeing with RBC 97%, in this 22% of oxygen is delivered. So, what is the ratio between 20 ml to 5? It will be 100% is the saturation it is with, and it delivers close to 25%. That is what? That is the oxygen delivered to the tissues is 22% from RBC. Totally from blood it will be 25 by 97 through the RBC, 3% with the plasma 100. So collectively 22%, which can be said to be the 4 by 5th part of, out of the portion 1 by 5th part of 1 by 5th part of the oxygen is delivered to the tissues. So, how much it is carrying? Generally, normal tissues will have 4 by 5th portion of the oxygen it is with the. At normal tissues, the blood capillaries are with restoring a 4 by 5th part. Almost all 75%. That's what the saturation of hemoglobin at tissues in the capillaries 75%. Why? It is delivered 1. That is, out of the 4 molecule, each molecule of hemoglobin delivered 1. So that's what it is said to be saturation of hemoglobin at the tissues where partial pressure of oxygen, it is saturation of hemoglobin is 75%. Clear? Next, at skeletal muscles, let's have the description. At skeletal muscles, the partial pressure of oxygen is 20 mmHg only. Remind you what I am saying. At skeletal muscles in the sense rapidly undergoing exercise, rigorous exercise undergoing, where partial pressure of oxygen is 20 mmHg, which means it is even lesser than that of what at normal tissues have. Why? Where the oxidation of food substance is faster, at the same time utility by muscles is faster. What do you mean by that? It means that they require more oxygen. That is the reason why more oxygen is delivered to the tissues. So saturation of hemoglobin will be very less when compared with that of the normal tissues. Why? Normal tissues with a 40 mmHg of a partial pressure of oxygen, whereas at skeletal muscles it is 20 mmHg, which means it is more of the unloading capacity, means as the lesser the partial pressure of oxygen, lesser is the binding of oxygen with the hemoglobin. More is the dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin. So, the saturation of hemoglobin will come down to 32%. Why? That is 65% of the oxygen is what delivered to the tissues. 65, 32, 97 through RBC. Clear? In the same manner, 22% of oxygen is delivered at normal tissues. 22% plus 75%, 97. So, the saturation of hemoglobin at tissues under normal condition, the partial pressure of oxygen is 40 mmHg, is the reason why the saturation of hemoglobin is 75%. What do you mean by this? If it is carrying 4 oxygen molecule, it is 100%. So, 1 molecule of oxygen is delivered by each hemoglobin. So, saturation will be 75. That is the important point we see. Whereas here, skeletal muscles, where the partial pressure of oxygen is 20 mmHg, it is even very less, which means where the rigorous muscle contractions takes place. So, more oxygen is needed. so more oxygen is delivered, so saturation will be very less, that is 32% only, where 65% is delivered. Which means, recall your memory, the case of Bohr's effect. We discussed Bohr effect in the sense the effect of the CO2 and H plus ions, the effect of CO2 and H plus on oxygen carrying capacity with hemoglobin at tissues has the partial pressure of Bohr effect is the effect of CO2 H plus on the unloading of the oxygen from hemoglobin as at the tissues. 40 mmHg is the partial pressure of oxygen, so the saturation will come down. The lesser the partial pressure of oxygen, the lesser the saturation. So the concentration of CO2 and H plus, what unloads the oxygen from the hemoglobin. So effect of CO2 and H plus on unloading of oxygen from hemoglobin or dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin can be said to be the Bohr effect. And this also we have seen the diagrammatically. This is the one axis plotting partial pressure and another is the saturation, where the diagrams we have seen as it is. This is the oxygen dissociation curve. Oxygen dissociation curve will either drift to right side or else the left side. Why it is shifted to right side? If the PCO2 increases, arrow mark upside indicates the increase of a pressure of a gas. Increasing, arrow mark downwards is decreasing. So shifting of the Bohr effect on right side indicates PO2 is more, temperature is more, and hydrogen ion concentration is more, whereas PO2 is low. Shifting of the oxygen dissociation curve or the sigmoid curve towards the left indicates PO2 is more, PCO2 less, temperature less, hydrogen ion concentration less. This is what are the factors influencing the Bohr effect, if is nothing but the effect of CO2 and H plus on oxygen carrying capacity or saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen, and also the Bohr effect, the sigmoid curve, nothing but oxygen dissociation curve, which explains the relationship of partial pressure of oxygen with saturation of hemoglobin. If the oxygen dissociation curve shift right side is the factors that influence the shifting of the sigmoid curve or oxygen dissociation curve toward the right side indicates more CO2, more PCO2, partial pressure of CO2 is more, temperature is more, hydrogen ion concentration is more. Why? CO2, partial pressure more, so solubility more. CO2 combines with the water form H2CO3, acid. As the acid increases, so hydrogen ion concentration increases. This is the point to remember. Then the oxygen dissociation curve shifting left side indicates the association of the oxygen with hemoglobin because of the increase of partial pressure of oxygen more, PCO2 low, temperature low, hydrogen ion concentration low. This is very, very important. So it shows the partial pressure of oxygen low, partial pressure of carbon dioxide is more, so oxygen from hemoglobin dissociation supplied to the tissues, oxygen. At lungs surface area, at the respiratory surface, as partial pressure of oxygen is more, so oxygen diffuses into the blood and combine with the hemoglobin and forms oxyhemoglobin. There the hemoglobin receives the oxygen at the lungs, so oxyhemoglobin is formed. This is named to be the oxygenation, whereas at tissues the partial pressure of oxygen is less, so oxyhemoglobin dissociated and liberates the oxygen. So it is a reversible reaction where the reaction involved from left side to right side, right side to the left side, reversible reaction, right? So so the point to recall is, for suppose if breathing is stopped or else the heart is stopped beating or breathing is stopped, both are interlinked. Under that condition, a person who is with the stoppage of the breathing, whose life can be recovered within 4 to 5 minutes of a time period. How? Generally, the normal tissues where the partial pressure of oxygen is 40 mmHg, where saturation of hemoglobin is 75%, in the sense it is delivered 22% of oxygen to the tissues. Is it right? So 75% is carrying. That 75% of oxygen can be transported or supplied to the tissues by forcing on the thoracic cavity the life of an individual. If the sudden stoppage of the breathing takes place or a sudden beating of the heart is stopped, the life of an individual can be brought back within 4 to 5 minutes of a time. That is what reason is at a normal condition. The tissues are with the 40 mmHg, where saturation of the hemoglobin is still with 75%. This is the reason why it can be done. Let's move on to the another process which is said to be the transport of CO2. Transport of CO2. Transport of CO2, same like that of, as we have seen previously, the transport of CO2 also include in a compound form. Transport of CO2 also involve the three phases. One, physical solution. The case with the transport of O2 and CO2 does not take place in a original form but by compound form. We have discussed the oxygen transport in the form of oxyhemoglobin. It is a combination of oxygen with hemoglobin, that is a compound form. In the same manner, the transport of CO2 by physical solution form. Second one is the bicarbonate form, and the third one is named to be the carbamino compounds. Carbamino compounds. Third is said to be the bicarbonate form. Bicarbonates. Let's see. These are the three phases of the transport of the CO2. Physical solution. 7% of the carbon dioxide transported via the physical solution. 7% is transported through physical solution. 23% is via carbamino compounds, and 70% is by bicarbonates. So 70 plus 23, 93 plus 7, 100%. So CO2 transport in three forms: physical solution, carbamino compounds, bicarbonates. The point to remember that the solubility of carbon dioxide when compared with the O2 per a unit area, the diffusion rate is 20 to 25% is more for CO2 when compared with that of the oxygen. Why? As the CO2 solubility is more. That is the point to remember and recall. So physical solution form 7% of the carbon dioxide transported via the physical solution. In the sense the plasma is with water, so carbon dioxide combines with the H2O and forms what is said to be H2CO3. H2CO3 is an acid, so the acidic condition increases. H2CO3 is an acid by which the acidic condition of the blood increases. This is the major reason why least percentage of carbon dioxide transported via the physical solution. If it is done by mostly naturally, it leads to death or fatal. Why? It influences the nature of the plasma of the blood. It always has to be maintained 7.4 pH. That is slightly alkaline. But what it takes place if it is carries the carbon dioxide mostly with the physical solution, its acidic condition increases and the plasma alkaline condition is what varied and it leads to death. That's the reason why least percentage. Let's come to discuss. And one more point to remember that the carbonic acid formation is influenced by carbonic anhydrase enzyme. Carbonic anhydrase enzyme, what act as a catalyst? An enzyme is a catalyst. This carbonic anhydrase is responsible for formation of carbonic acid. And at the same time, it is also responsible for the breaking of the carbonic acid into H plus and HCO3 minus. Formation of carbonic acid, its dissociation, both are what influenced by carbonic anhydrase. This carbonic anhydrase is a small quantity. It is with a small quantity in the plasma comparative to that of the RBC. The presence of the carbonic anhydrase is much more number of the times, 5,000 times. It is a large extent. So carbonic anhydrase present in both plasma and RBC, but its content is more, its presence is more in RBC when compared with the plasma. This is acting as a catalyst and it is responsible for formation of a carbonic acid and its breaking down. In the case of the plasma, it is a stable, so it remains as it is, which means it is not further dissociated. This is the reason why 7%. The case with the carbamino compounds, 23% of the carbon dioxide transported via the carbamino compounds. In the sense, let us see. Basically, combination of that is transport of CO2 through proteins is what we discuss. Generally, plasma contain proteins and RBC contain protein. What is RBC containing protein? Hemoglobin. So carbamino compounds, via carbamino compounds, 23% of the carbon dioxide transported. So carbon dioxide combines with the what is the RBC? RBC is with hemoglobin. Hemoglobin contain amine. Is it right? So it is combined with the, look at here, it combines with the amine group of the hemoglobin and results in the formation of the NHCOO, that is none other than carbamino compound. That is, we can also say it is carbamino compound hemoglobin CO2. So, one NH combined with the CO2, that is here hemoglobin NH. Already we discussed. Protein includes amine carboxylic. So, the amine NH2. So, here hemoglobin is carbamino compound, hemoglobin with the NH, and it is combined with the what is called CO2 and forms carbamino compound. NH of the hemoglobin amine combined with the CO2 and results in carbamino compounds.